Did you know that the first Muslim actor to win an Oscar was raised by 3 generations of Christian ministers, but found his deepest truth in Islam? You'll never believe how Mahershala Ali went from being the grandson of ordained Baptist ministers to making history at Hollywood's biggest night as a devout Muslim convert, breaking. While the world celebrated his groundbreaking Academy Award victory for Moonlight, few knew the spiritual journey that had been quietly transforming this Netflix star for over 2 decades. But what could drive someone from a family of preachers to embrace a completely different faith and then conquer Hollywood's highest honors? Mahershala Ali was born into a legacy of Christian ministry that seemed to guarantee his spiritual path for life. His mother, Wilisha, was an ordained Baptist minister, as were his aunt and grandmother, creating a powerful triumvirate of female religious leadership that shaped his earliest understanding of faith, purpose, and divine calling. Growing up in Hayward, California, young Mahershala was immersed in church culture, gospel music, and biblical teachings that provided both comfort and community. His childhood was filled with Sunday services, youth group activities, and the expectation that he would continue the family's tradition of Christian service. But something within this preacher's grandson was asking questions that traditional Baptist theology couldn't fully answer. But what experiences in his formative years planted seeds of spiritual seeking that would eventually lead him away from his family's faith? When Mahershala arrived at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, he encountered intellectual and cultural diversity that challenged everything he thought he knew about religion, spirituality, and human purpose. The theater program exposed him to literature, philosophy, and worldviews that expanded his understanding of human experience far beyond his California Baptist upbringing. His classmates came from every conceivable background: Jewish, Catholic, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, and atheist, creating conversations that forced him to examine his inherited beliefs with new scrutiny. The artistic environment encouraged questioning, exploration, and authentic self-expression that conflicted with religious certainty he had never been encouraged to doubt. But how did this creative awakening prepare him for the spiritual transformation that was still years away? During his early acting career in New York, Mahershala discovered that portraying complex characters required understanding motivations, beliefs, and worldviews that went far beyond his personal experience. Method acting techniques demanded emotional honesty and psychological depth that forced him to confront his own spiritual assumptions and inner contradictions. Playing diverse roles meant research into different cultures, religions, and philosophical systems that broadened his appreciation for human diversity and spiritual seeking. The more authentically he could portray other people's beliefs, the more he questioned the exclusivity claims of his own religious tradition. But what specific roles or research experiences began opening his heart to Islamic teachings and philosophy? In 1999, after years of spiritual questioning and intellectual exploration, Mahershala Ali made the decision that would define the rest of his life. He converted to Islam. This wasn't an impulsive choice driven by crisis or romance. It was the culmination of careful study, prayer, and genuine spiritual seeking that had been developing throughout his 20s. The conversion represented both a break from his family's Christian legacy and a fulfillment of the spiritual authenticity they had taught him to value. Islam's emphasis on social justice aligned with values his ministerial family had instilled. Its intellectual coherence appealed to the critical thinking his education had developed. Its spiritual disciplines provided the structure his artistic soul craved. But what specific Islamic teachings resonated so powerfully that he was willing to risk family relationships and career prospects for religious truth? 2 years after converting to Islam, Mahershala joined the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, a branch of Islam that many mainstream Muslims consider heretical or controversial. This decision revealed both his independent thinking and his commitment to authentic spiritual seeking, rather than religious popularity. The Ahmadiyya movement's emphasis on peaceful dialogue, interfaith understanding, and progressive interpretation of Islamic teachings appealed to an actor who had always bridged different worlds and communities. Their focus on education, social service, and spiritual development provided a framework for integrating his Islamic faith with his artistic career. But what did joining this minority Islamic movement teach him about religious courage and authentic conviction? Converting to Islam in 1999 meant that Mahershala's entire acting career developed within the context of his Islamic faith and identity. Unlike celebrities who convert after achieving fame, he had to navigate Hollywood's often Islamophobic environment as an openly Muslim actor from the beginning. This meant turning down roles that conflicted with his religious values, explaining his prayer schedule to directors, and representing Islam positively in an industry that often portrayed Muslims as stereotypes or villains. His commitment to authentic representation, while maintaining religious integrity, required balancing artistic ambition with spiritual accountability in ways that few actors ever experience. But how did these early challenges prepare him for the greater visibility and responsibility that would come with Oscar-level success? Mahershala Ali's career trajectory coincided with Netflix's revolution in premium television content, providing opportunities for complex, nuanced storytelling that traditional networks had rarely supported. Shows like House of Cards and Luke Cage offered roles that allowed him to portray sophisticated characters whose moral complexity reflected real human experience rather than simplified stereotypes. The streaming platform's global reach meant that his authentic portrayals of diverse characters could influence audiences worldwide, creating unprecedented opportunities for positive Muslim representation in mainstream entertainment. His work with Netflix demonstrated how faith-guided choices could enhance rather than limit artistic excellence and popular appeal. But what specific projects allowed him to integrate his Islamic values with his professional ambitions most effectively? When Mahershala was cast as Juan in Moonlight, few could have predicted that this supporting role would make Oscar history while challenging every stereotype about Muslim actors in Hollywood. His portrayal of a Cuban drug dealer who becomes a father figure to a struggling gay teenager demonstrated acting range that transcended religious, cultural, and social boundaries. The role's complexity, showing kindness and mentorship alongside morally questionable profession, reflected the nuanced understanding of human nature that Islamic teachings had taught him to appreciate. His performance earned universal critical acclaim, while representing values of compassion, guidance, and protective care that aligned perfectly with his religious convictions. But how did his Islamic faith inform his approach to this groundbreaking character and historic achievement? On February 26, 2017, when Mahershala Ali's name was announced as Best Supporting Actor, he became not just the first Muslim to win an Oscar, but also a symbol of possibility for millions of Muslims worldwide who had never seen positive representation at Hollywood's highest level. His acceptance speech was carefully crafted to honor his Islamic faith, while avoiding controversy or political statements that might overshadow the historic achievement. The moment represented years of preparation, spiritual grounding, and professional excellence converging in a single triumph that transcended individual success to become community celebration. His victory speech thanked his wife and newborn daughter, while acknowledging the spiritual foundation that had made his career possible. But what did this historic moment teach him about the responsibility that comes with being a pioneering Muslim in entertainment? Mahershala's second Oscar win for Green Book in 2019 proved that his initial success wasn't an anomaly, but the beginning of sustained excellence that continued honoring both his artistic gifts and religious values. Playing pianist Don Shirley required research into another complex character, whose dignity, talent, and social challenge reflected themes that resonated with his experience as a Muslim actor in Hollywood. The role's emphasis on interracial friendship, artistic excellence, and moral courage aligned with Islamic teachings about human brotherhood, personal development, and social justice that had guided his career choices from the beginning. This second Oscar victory established him as one of contemporary cinema's most reliable performers, while demonstrating how spiritual authenticity could enhance rather than limit artistic achievement. But what did this continued success teach him about balancing individual accomplishment with community responsibility? Mahershala's portrayal of Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes in Netflix's Luke Cage provided opportunities to explore themes of power, corruption, and redemption that connected directly with Islamic teachings about moral choice and divine accountability. The character's complexity, showing both villainy and vulnerability, reflected his understanding that human beings cannot be reduced to simple categories of good and evil. His performance brought depth and authenticity to a comic book adaptation, while demonstrating how spiritual awareness could inform even entertainment-focused projects. The show's cultural impact, particularly within African American communities, showed how his Islamic values could serve broader social purposes beyond personal spiritual development. But how did playing morally complex characters deepen his understanding of Islamic teachings about human nature and divine mercy? When Mahershala was cast as Detective Wayne Hayes in the third season of True Detective, he stepped into a role that would span decades and explore themes of memory, justice, and existential meaning that connected directly with Islamic philosophy about life's ultimate purpose. The character's struggle with aging, loss, and the search for truth provided opportunities to portray spiritual depth without explicit religious content. His performance demonstrated how Islamic principles about patience, perseverance, and trust in divine wisdom could inform authentic character development even in secular contexts. The role's critical acclaim proved that his spiritual foundation enhanced rather than limited his ability to connect with diverse audiences seeking meaningful entertainment. But what did this complex character teach him about integrating faith with professional excellence? Throughout his career success, Mahershala has maintained that his most important role is as husband and father, priorities that directly reflect Islamic teachings about family responsibility and community service. His marriage to artist Amatus Sami Karim and their daughter Bari represent the personal fulfillment that his career achievements serve rather than replace. His approach to balancing professional demands with family obligations demonstrates how Islamic principles can guide practical decisions about work schedules, travel commitments, and public exposure. The privacy he maintains around his family life reflects religious values about protecting loved ones from unnecessary public attention while serving as positive example for other Muslim families. But how has fatherhood deepened his understanding of the spiritual responsibilities that come with public influence and professional success? Today, Mahershala